after the cooldown has already been used.
Fnatic wanted to pick up the Rhyme after they banned the Cruel, so it's a smart ban coming from SK Gaming to take that away and not give them the much stronger jungle matchup, no matter who they would have picked up, just because it's Rhyme. However, it leaves Kestrel open for Fnatic, and this is a hero Tetno JJ played yesterday to an amazing performance, and he can replicate it here, especially since they're playing that style of passive early game, get items, then team fight. Kestrel works perfectly for that.
Certainly does. I'm curious to see what SK Gaming's answer will be going into this one. We've seen SK play a multitude of styles across the weeks in the Vainglory 8, and I'm curious, we've mentioned a lot about siege compositions. That would work very well with a Lyra.
Yeah, definitely would. You can have a lot of pressure in the early game with the Lyra. You get that little bit of sustain, so if you are pushed a little bit too far forward, you can always just back off. They're going to take this Reza. That's a very aggressive pick for Tyrus, which is something I'm going to be really keeping my eyes on. Tyrus has been phenomenal in the jungle, and if you put him on a playmaking hero, he can absolutely take over a game.
The Reza is a pick we saw much more significantly in North America yesterday, but we only had a few games on stream yesterday. It was only a small slice of the pie, so I'm excited to see how Tyrus is going to be able to do on that Reza.
And I mentioned SK are heavily prioritizing what's strong in 2.9, and they already have a very clear understanding of what that is. Reza is extremely strong in 2.9, especially if you pick up an aftershock on him. That is so much damage coming through, especially with the Jewel pickup. That is a lot of pressure in lane also that they can try to snowball with.
Absolutely. We didn't see Jewel on stream yesterday. It was played in the TSM game. Off stream, though, this is definitely still a strong pick.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the weapon power in general is so strong right now because people are still figuring out what they want to do with the crystal. It is going to be a Koshka to answer, and I like the Koshka into the Reza just because at level 1 you have a very clear advantage. Once you start to get a couple of items, though, we saw yesterday, we saw this exact matchup.
Yep.
Koshka dominated the level 1 fight, but then all of a sudden Reza was very quickly able to answer and get right back in the game. So it means that these two junglers are going to be butting heads constantly through the first 8 minutes, and it should be a blast.
I was talking to Physics, who helps C9 drafts on the North American side, who played the Koshka into the Reza, and we both agreed that actually Koshka works well against Reza. It was more how Joseph played the Koshka that made it not work out for them. So here for Palmator, he can make a lot happen throughout the first 4 or 5 levels before Reza picks up his aftershock. And then the Jewel, we did see it yesterday on TSM, like you said, but they did lose with it. So it's in my opinion, it's somewhat of an even draft. Is definitely going to come up to execution and whether Fnatic are going to be able to get ahead early on.
All right, so I have to quickly ask you guys before we jump into this one, who's going to be the ones on the front foot? Obviously, we've mentioned the Koshka is going to have to be aggressive, but Reza, once he gets his aftershock, you can definitely be aggressive yourself. Is this going to come a lot down to the laners here?
It's going to come down to who gets the first movement, because both of these teams are going to be relatively squishy. They're both going to have a ton of burst damage. Whoever makes the first hit land is probably going to be able to kill their target before they can even respond.
It's definitely going to be about that. The only thing is that Jewel will have a lot of lane pressure against the Kestrel before Kestrel gets a few items, and that can be utilized for the side of SK. If they try to get a turret before Kestrel gets rolling, they could probably snowball that gold lead and try to close out.
All right, well, it's about time to get on into our first European semi-final. Hashtag Vainglory 8. Let us know whether you're supporting Fnatic or SK Gaming. But without further ado, it's time to pass it over to Medic and Excoundrel to head into our first semi-final of the day.
And Fnatic. Excoundrel, talk to me a little bit about how these two teams are going to face off against each other as we get onto the Halcyon Fold.
I mean, SK have got an incredibly aggressive composition here, Medic. You've got Cavalifat on the Jewel, who, like the analyst desk was saying, I think Jewel's in a pretty good space right now. She's got natural pierce on her Thunderstrike. She works very well with critical strike builds, which, as we know, due to the lower armor, do hit a lot harder. They are going to be very hard hitting after they hit their first power spikes, that aftershock on the Reza, the Sora Blade on the Jewel, and they're going to be looking to put pressure on this Kestrel before she can scale up towards that late game powerhouse that we know her to be. So SK have definitely got an aggressive composition that can run away with it, especially if they get an early first turret here, Medic.
It looks like on the other side, Fnatic still have the possibility of being aggressive as well, though. The Koshka, you've even got a Dragon Ball contract on the Arden as well, giving you that little bit of extra damage. So Fnatic have a few options here if they do want to go aggressive, and that looks to be what they're doing early on, as Hegman and Tyrus are going to get pushed back by NetToilet, Techno JJ, and Palmatoro.
I'm sure Dragonborn would be very happy that you named the contract after him.
Dragon Blood, oops. Well, he's giving a lot to the community, you know. Sometimes
he has. I think he deserves the contract name. I agree with you. I think it's more fitting there, Medic. Yeah, I agree. I think Koshka can definitely put pressure on Reza early. Again, anybody that uses Aftershock right now is inherently going to be in a pretty good space in the meta, because Aftershock as an item has improved in terms of value. Palmatoro going so aggressive in the backside of the jungle here, though. SK are going to respond.
NetToilet is around there as well. Tyrus takes a bit of damage as NetToilet jumps back in with the Vanguard. Hegman trying to do what he can, but Tyrus is incredibly low. The Imperial Stitch was not enough to heal him up, and first blood goes to Fnatic. And here comes Cavalifar to try and join the fray as well. He's going to push NetToilet back. A good rocket leap across the wall, straight onto the face of Palmatoro. And that cat is not long for the world. NetToilet will be able to get off to safety, but it ends up being a 1-for-1 trade.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a fantastic push in by Palmatoro. He got both the backs. Actually did make that slightly worth in Fnatic's favor for that particular instance. But you can see Koshka, as it stands, base damage is very, very high. And when you're not looking at those item spikes that Reza really needs to come online, you're going to find that Koshka will have the potential to just out-duel Reza in terms of strict burst damage in the early game. Reza needs to chain his abilities together to get his heroic perk activated, to get the on-hit damage. And Koshka, with her movement speed, she can dance around that quite nicely. She doesn't need to pull any fancy tricks, just needs to be able to proc that twirly death to get those base attacks hitting hard. So you're going to find that Palmatoro will be looking to be as aggressive as possible against Tyrus, simply because of the fact that he doesn't really need too many facets to make these kind of trades go into favor.
Palmatoro is going to jump onto Tyrus once again. The Imperial Sutra does come down, but Tyrus is so low, just forced out of his jungle by Fnatic. Palmatoro did claim the Elder Treant as well for the second time in the game, so Fnatic just so far ahead in terms of gold. Already 1,500, 1,600 in the lead over SK, and this is what we want to see from Fnatic. They are lagging behind in the table in terms of points. They need these wins against SK if they're going to have a chance of going to Worlds, and while I say that, Cavalifar jumps onto Techno JJ, going to get traded back by NetToilet. The active camo coming out as Palmatoro comes in from the side as well, but Fnatic unable to find their man.
And this is really good because this has all been facilitated from Palmatoro and NetToilet's early aggression. I think it's a really good way to put pressure onto Reza early on. Reza, like a lot of people know, he needs specific item spikes to come online. He's all about that on-hit damage that you do, that you get when you chain your abilities together. You've got to land a Scorcher, get your heroic perk activated, and then obviously look for the Aftershock proc too. And you see Palmatoro is really, really using that, because at this stage of the game, like we said, he is going to be stronger. And that's allowing less lane pressure to come through. Suddenly Hegman is drawn to the jungle to support Tyrus, and this ability to chain Cavalifar and the Lyra together to push the lane heavily against Techno JJ is starting to unravel, which means the ability to take that first turret is slowly being diminished by SK, and it's a 2-level advantage for Palmatoro right now. He's stolen loads of SK's jungle away, and Tyrus is on the back foot massively.
Yeah, Palmatoro has more than double the farm of Tyrus at the moment. It's such a monumental advantage for him, and with that level 6 can look for the yummy Catnip Frenzy. He can jump onto one of these members of SK who have yet to pick up that many reflex blocks. I only see one on Cavalifar thus far, so not going to be able to block that out too easily. The question is, can Fnatic use this early advantage? They're 2,000 gold up, but you need to start looking towards that first turret. You need to start using the gold advantage you have at the moment to actually snowball the game away from SK.
And what's really funny, Medic, is as Palmatoro jumps in onto poor Cavalifar, so low there. Maybe one ultimate would be blocked.
A great reflex block there, and Palmatoro will be forced out the back of the fight, and Fnatic unable to find the kill. That was one reflex box for SK. The Imperial Sigil just about healing off towards the side as Tyrus is chased in as well. But still Fnatic unable to find inroads underneath this turret of SK. Tyrus now the target, and there's the kill that Fnatic needed, their second of the game. And they are eventually able to take down the jungler from SK.
Yeah, really good aggression by Fnatic. And what's so funny, Medic, is yesterday we were talking about Fnatic. We said if they want to have any hope of getting that world spot for the European scene, they need to be far more decisive and far more proactive than they were yesterday. What a way to start out against the current leaders of the European points on the VG8. by being this super aggressive, really facilitate. I mean, I haven't seen Palmatoro play like this in months. This is one of the best performances from Palmatoro that I have seen in quite some time. And he's going for a very old school, I think Von C kind of popularized this, where you go for the heavy prism, the eclipse prism, and then build into the aftershock, unless he thinks that the Shatterglass is going to be able to snowball him here, which might be the case. He's got a lot of gold to work with, though, Medic, so I imagine he's likely going to pick up the aftershock. But goodness, I mean, this is such proactivity from Fnatic, and this is exactly what we wanted to see from them yesterday, because they need to play this way if they want to beat the top teams, not only in Europe, but in the world.
Relifar takes a chunk of damage, but the Imperial Sigil will heal him back up. Hegman has gone Fountain first as well, so we'll be able to get double healing out with the Imperial Sigil, and that red button used just to clear out the wave as SK continue to stand on the back foot here. The crits coming out from Techno JJ onto that Lyra as well are doing absolute work, and Fnatic are still on that front foot. It's such a change. It's so good for them to be able to challenge like this. A great one-shot, one kill, but the stun is going to land from Cavalifar. Good fountain use from Fnatic as Cavalifar perhaps has overextended. Palmatoro jumps in. The detonator from Tyrus will keep him safe for the time being. Fnatic unable to find the second kill, but they do chase in further. Palmatoro coming up huge for Fnatic, gets the second kill of the fight.
Yeah, he's miles ahead of Tyrus, double the farm. Got still a 2-level advantage, and now Techno JJ, Palmatoro, and Netwellette will look to push into this first turret. Hegman not going to be able to defend it, and goodness me, what a way to work off your early aggression. Palmatoro played exactly how you need to into a Reza, unrelenting, don't let Reza farm the jungle, because Reza is still a very slow jungle farmer compared to a lot of other heroes in the game. He will very slowly move through the jungle. He doesn't quite have the clear speed of a Koshka, nowhere near the clear speed of something like a Rhyme, and so Palmatoro is abusing that. He clears his own jungle in the early game, moves very quickly over to Tyrus, knowing that Tyrus just isn't going to have the ability to effectively either out-duel the Koshka or even try and steal things away from her, because if you can body block the Scorcher and stop the heroic perk activating onto a jungle minion, well,
we'll have the gold mine go over to SK, but Cavalifar falls straight away. A great gauntlet from Netwellette will lock up Tyrus. He jumps away with the detonator across the wall, but Fnatic are willing to chase in. The yummy cabinet frenzy gets a double for Techno JJ. I was going to say it was a good call from SK to be able to get the gold mine, but they pay dearly for it.
Yeah, they do get that global gold though, and they only give up 2 kills, but it's not the worst in the world. I say that almost. Hegman gets caught out at the end there. And another thing, because of this aggression and because of the starvation of gold, is that classically, and this is a North American old wives' tale, but not really an old wives' tale, most North Americans say that when you play against a Koshka, everybody of value needs to have a reflex block by the time that Koshka is level 6. The unfortunate aspect of this game was that because Tyrus was so starved of gold, and because Palmatoro got so ahead because he stole so much farm away, he was accelerating his level 6, and Tyrus didn't have the gold to invest in the reflex block. So there's been a massive period of the game, longer than you would usually see in pro games, where Palmatoro is actually getting massive work done with this yummy catnip frenzy, simply because the enemy team didn't have the gold to invest in things like reflex blocks super early on. Tyrus has now got it, but it's 9 minutes into the game, and the damage is kind of already been done at this point. Medic.
Yeah, Palmatoro now has a broken myth alongside that aftershock, so he is doing a huge amount of DPS in these fights when he can jump onto the squishier targets. Alongside that, Netwellette's got a Shiver Steel for himself, so just trying to keep on these targets from SK. We'll have to see if Fnatic are able to push for this next turret, because SK are still able to slowly get back into this game. If they can slow down the tempo, if they can get some gold back in their pockets, maybe later on they can fight into Fnatic.
Look at this though, Netwellette has gone for a Shiver Steel. Not only is that going to help him peel the Jewel away from his Kestrel, but he's also going to be able to use that to facilitate Palmatoro, who takes a bunch of damage.
Great gauntlet as well, hits onto Hegman and Cavalifar. Palmatoro gets the kill onto the Razor, actually keeping himself alive off towards the side, eventually falls, and now Fnatic will just chase away down towards the bottom side. Techno JJ retreating from Hegman and Cavalifar, who are willing to continue chasing in on this. Netwellette is low, as is Techno JJ. The slowed onto him, but the Thunderstrike doesn't hit from Cavalifar, and SK will be happy with the 1-for-1 trade.
It's interesting that Netwellette doesn't really need to go Crucible this game. There's no massive need for an Atlas Pauldrons, although I might have considered some armor against the Jewel given the pierce that she has. And he choosing to go for the Shatterglass second, so not Shatterglass, the Shiver Steel second, really feels like he's playing a very aggressive snowbally style of captain here, but also has that ability to, like we said, peel the Techno JJ away. And obviously this is a very heavy melee composition coming from SK. You you can land a couple of those Shiver Steel hits onto a Reza or onto Cavalifar, you're going to slow their mobility, and especially Reza, slowing down that mobility in any way, shape, or form is going to keep your Kestrel just a little bit safer in these fights. Fnatic kind of picked off more than they could chew right there, but they do have a massive gold lead to work with at this point in time. Have kind of slowed off the accelerator right now, Medic, though, so have to keep our eyes on them because they've been prone to this before. Sometimes they've had this early aggression bout and then have kind of got that first turret, then haven't really figured out what to do with it as we just get a pause coming through. So I want to see Fnatic figure out what they need to do.
Feels like there's a bit of a tempo shift for Fnatic as well. They move from having Palmetto as the early aggressive jungler, getting in the faces of Tyrus and of SK, and now it's on Techno JJ to start carrying these fights. It's more of a protective front line who can do a bit of DPS, and Techno JJ sitting at 4-0-1 with a Tyrant's Monocle, with a Solar Blade, needs to be landing those glimmers and actually winning these fights for Fnatic.
Yeah, he's really actually kept on par with Cavalifar, which is the more on Cavalifar's side is impressive. Cavalifar miles are behind in CS, but also, he's managed to keep in terms of items fairly level with Techno JJ. I mean, Techno JJ is sitting on about 800 gold more than Cavalifar in the bank right now, but you have to respect the damage output of Cavalifar, and with Tyros going towards his Broken Myth, you'll also have to respect that. But you're right, Techno JJ feels like he's not quite having the same impact as Palmetoro right now, and Palmetoro has now invested in some defenses. I think that was one of the criticisms that we could have had. He very quickly rushed towards that Broken Myth, leaving the fact that when you get towards that mid game and you lose that snowball potential, once you're in there and not quite doing the damage that you were earlier, you go down very quickly, which is kind of what we saw with him earlier. He went down super quickly to a couple of Thunder Strikes from Cavalifar. So Palmetoro now investing in some defenses and picking up the infusion. You feel like Fnatic are gearing for something here.
Is there a way that SK, hold out this game? Because they're the 4-week consecutive winners. That's not the best way of phrasing that. I might just start this whole sentence again, Excalibur. We're going to rewind just back to the start of it. Is there a way that SK hold out on this one? Because they've won 4 consecutive weeks of VG8 in Split 1. Now they're looking for their 5th in a row. Can they actually have that comeback story? Can they mount a comeback here against Fnatic in this game 1?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Koshka, as most people know, especially now that the Broken Myth has changed, you don't scale up in these fights with the Broken Myth stacks. Koshka does fall off, so her flat damage, her scalings, they don't favor a late game carry hero. She often excels in the late game just due to having an ultimate that can always retain utility, especially if you're able to burn reflex blocks with a double gauntlet, for instance, which NetToilette might be considering with that Echo. But you have a very good late game scaling damage output team in general from SK, and they've got a Lyra who provides excellent sustain in the fights as well. So Cavalifar, if you can clear these waves and they can keep this choke point turret alive, because that's really the key one to make sure that their base doesn't open up, there's definitely a way back into this for SK. They've got the mobility very easily to chase down Techno JJ if they find the right opportunities. So I wouldn't count SK out just yet. They may look like they're on the ropes, but the ropes are very, very stretchy. There's always that swing back.
A lot of elasticity in those ropes at the moment. Still a 3,000 gold lead though for Fnatic, and they'll be just wanting to get this one last fight. Already Palmetto at level 12. Tyrus is only level 9. That's a 3-level advantage in the jungle for Fnatic. Techno JJ equal levels with Cavalifar, and NetToilette and Hegman are relatively even as well. So Palmetto is still that big lead for Fnatic when it comes to these later fights. There was a gold mine on the board here if they want it. Palmetto is going to jump onto Cavalifar. Bright Bulwark will slow him up, but already Cavalifar is dead. The fountain too late. Good Crucible on the block. Here comes the second gauntlet though, as NetToilette's going to jump in. Follows the Arcane Passage to try and chase down Hegman. Tyrus fighting Techno JJ down towards the bottom side, and he just about escapes, but not from Palmetto, who sinks in the claws and gets the kill. 2 kills for Fnatic and a Crystal Sentry to top it off.
Oh, the coat of plate's doing great work for Palmetto, soaking damage from Cavalifar, and with Cavalifar having no defensive itemization because you don't classically pick up too much on a duel, Palmetto just shred through him. Now they're going to get another gold mine to accelerate that advantage. They picked up the Crystal Sentry too. Fnatic just need to keep searching for these fights. They hit another breakpoint with that Tornado Trigger picked up for Techno JJ. Things are looking pretty good. The Echo has come through on NetToilette as well, a massive teamfight utility to have a double gauntlet, especially against a double melee composition that revolves around mobility. Their entire composition revolves around the mobility of a Reza, the mobility and the potential for a Jewel to jump and, land on her target with a double gauntlet with only 1 reflex block to work with. That's going to make it very difficult for that goal to be achieved. So I think Fnatic are setting themselves up for a win very nicely here.
Trying to push in on this turret. SK not finding the advantage they want, not finding the positioning they wanted. They did minion candy that wave as well, but I'm not going to be able to do too much with it. SK still on the back foot as Fnatic are now the ones prodding forward. They get the engage. The bright ball's going to come out. Palmato still looking for the chase, but can't quite get in there. And Fnatic still willing to play this one a little bit slower. They are 7,000 gold ahead. And with a minute left on the Kraken spawn, it looks like they might just take away the sentry to make sure that SK don't have that advantage in their jungle.
Yeah, Palmatoro knows that he's now at a spike in the game where he can invest very heavily into defense. Metal Jacket has been completed, and with Cavalifo lagging behind on his aggressive build path, it just means that Palmatoro is going to be able to easily soak up damage in the front line nicely, and especially because Fnatic are able to force SK onto the back foot. It's likely that Palmatoro is going to be doing most of the soaking because he is the guy that is outputting the majority of the burst damage straight away in the fight, and he's likely the one that's going to be up in SK's faces, forcing them to pay attention to him. So with that Metal Jacket, it's going to allow him to be very beefy. He's got tier 2 shielding to help him duel against Tyras, who, you know, really doesn't have the damage items necessary to make that burst on Reza significant at this point in the game. So I think they've itemized very well here for Fnatic. They just keep searching for these aggressive engages, you know, utilizing the fact that Palmatoro draws the attention while Techno JJ does this, slams those glimmer shots in from the backline and forces SK onto the back foot.
I mean, they're cracking up. All Fnatic need is one fight before they can turn back towards that big objective. SK still just trying to work out a way they can continue in this game. Of course, it is only game 1 of a best of 3, so SK do have the chance to come back and continue their unbeaten run, but Fnatic are looking very good early on in this series.
Yeah, absolutely. I think if they play this way, they're punishing the Reza pick specifically. Reza is very strong right now, but Koshka has been emerging as a pick that works pretty well into her, and I think Palmatoro has demonstrated specifically why that pick is good. But Fnatic need to hold this throughout the series. SK are probably going to learn from this. They learn very quickly, they adapt very quickly in a series. Palmatoro is going to start at the Kraken, they're going to force something.
There's the first gauntlet coming out. Cavalifar down low. Palmatoro there as well with the block, with the Crucible on the Yummy Cabinet Frenzy, and Palmatoro will be the first to fall. Techno JJ still alive. It's up to Tyras to try and take down that Kestrel, but Hegman wants to just disengage this fight. There is a Kraken available. 1-for-1 trade thus far as Techno JJ is going to run back through the jungle, and Fnatic realize they can't take a fight in the 2v2 at the moment.
Yeah, Techno JJ again not quite in the position to land those glimmer shots correctly, and actually it's interesting that Tyras decided that he'd turn around and run from Techno JJ despite the fact he was in close proximity to Techno JJ. He could use his B to dash round and dodge those glimmer shots. That was very interesting that he chose to back off from that fight, given they also had Hegman at a high energy value. Techno JJ slamming the glimmer shots in though.
Yeah, Hegman just base checking straight into Techno JJ and Net Toilet. The vision control just there for Fnatic, and Tyras has to run away by himself. It's a good kill for Fnatic as they realized that the Roma just didn't know where they were and had to walk straight towards that Kraken to make sure it wasn't being taken. Speaking of Krakens, Fnatic are going to start it up. Cavalifar does have the big red button if he wants to try and steal across the wall. Can, of course, jump in as well, but it could be this Kraken just going across towards Fnatic. Palmatoro jumps onto Cavalifar, and Cavalifar doesn't really have an answer to this. Tries to jump his way away, but here comes the Yummy Cabinet Frenzy from Palmatoro, and eventually the kill for Fnatic alongside that Kraken, and perhaps this is the beginning of the end for SK.
And you can see Hegman as well, his itemization, he's gone specifically to facilitate a double melee sort of assassin type composition. He's gone for the war treads. The Crucible needed to navigate his way through the gauntlet, but he hasn't got any armor. Classically, you saw yesterday, we learned, you know, Leon's second item, Metal Jacket on the captain support. It's specifically because you need that to be able to tank the damage from Techno JJ. Someone needs to body block on this composition against the weapon power Kestrel. Nobody has got any armor, so nobody is able to body block her, which is causing massive issues for Fnatic because you can't take sustained fights against the weapon power Kestrel when no one is able to deal with the damage. Tyra's found an opening.
Tries to jump onto Techno JJ, does get him low, goes into the detonator as well, but can't quite get the kill, and the active camos from Techno JJ just dodging around the side of this fight. Already we see the Reza fall, and now Cavalifar will follow shortly after. You have to feel Fnatic still in the ascendancy in this fight. The big red button doesn't quite kill Techno JJ. Remember that Kraken is still pushing into the base of SK. The one shot, one kill, Palmatoro takes across the wall, and that will be another kill for Fnatic, and you have to think that is the end for SK, as Fnatic will just look towards these crystal turrets and towards taking the game from SK.
Yeah. Actually, I think maybe Hegman is able to back off here and protect his turrets. Palmatori is going to jump back in, but I don't think they quite have what it takes to beat out this Kraken. Tyrus is going to be up now. I think this is going to be Fnatic's opportunity to back out. They wanted to just distract for as long as possible to allow...
Should have done it, Scoundrel. Should have gone for it.
Maybe should have. You know, they had the opportunity to dance around Hegman as best they could. They won't get the game here, but they've got everything but the game. Just that Vein Crystal remaining, and Kraken, she falls, and it's about 3/4 HP. So, you know, if Fnatic can even just distract SK, they do have a Weapon Power Kestrel who will chunk through something like the Vein Crystal. They do have the potential to take these fights in their favor. They've got a massive gold advantage, almost 10,000 at this point. Breakpoints have been hit. TechnoJJ is at his full damage output build. NetToilette is now sitting on some armor as well, being able to tank what he can, and Hegman face checking.
There's the Arcane Passage, and actually we'll bring Palmatori into the midst of the team. Cavalifar there as well. NetToilette down to half. So's Tyrus, though. 2 Glimmer shots to the back, and Tyrus realizes he doesn't want any part of this party. SK continue just to dance around that Crystal Sentry. Palmatori in the front line. A great gauntlet.
What a gauntlet.
Done. Tyrus there with the detonator. Just
another great gauntlet.
Straight away, 2 good gauntlets. And NetToilette has basically won this game for his team. Hegman caught in the act of camo. A triple kill for Techno. And this will be the game for Fnatic.
That's not the first time this weekend that we've seen NetToilette with some unbelievable gauntlets. He won the game solo yesterday with a gauntlet across the wall. And they're going to clean this first game up against SK. SK did go down the first game against Dynasty and completed a reverse sweep yesterday, so they are used to it even on this weekend. But what a game from Fnatic. Put pressure onto the Reza early in the jungle where he is weak with a slow clear speed. They made use of the Koshka's great early game, and I have not seen Palmatori being that aggressive in quite a while. And then eventually, with the late game, no one had the armor, no one could body block against TechnoJJ, and the damage output from Power Kestrel spoke for itself, Fnatic.